welcome to another episode of Grow For It. Today, we have another very special guest, Brian Pulliam. Brian is the founder of Refactor Coaching, and he helps exhausted engineers and leaders land fulfilling tech roles. With coming to us with 26 years of tech experience and 18 years of coaching experience. Brian, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Nathan.
Well, we're happy to have you. Can you tell us a little bit about how you personally got into coaching and where your passion kind of led you there?
Yeah, how do I keep this short? So after being in tech for about 13 years, I was sort of voluntold by my wife that I was going to help her coach on a youth athletics team. And in this case, the sport was volleyball. And I didn't really want to do it, but it's my wife, so I can't really say no. And I show up and I couldn't have been more wrong. It was the most fulfilling thing I've ever done in my life. And, while that's great, it was also kind of a wake up moment of wait, why doesn't this feel so fulfilling as what I do for my job, 40, 50, sometimes 60 hours a week. And so I had to kind of figure out, how do I resolve this inverse correlation between fulfillment and revenue, really? And so I found myself a career coach. Her name is Melissa, and she helped me realize the root cause, the reason for my fulfillment in athletics coaching was really just came down to helping other people be successful. And once that sort of clicked with the help of a coach, I was oh, okay, I will go into technical leadership roles because that is more helping people be successful. And if that's not far enough, if the tech gets in the way of wanting to do more coaching, then I will eventually pivot into being self-employed, which is what I started doing a little over 3 years ago. So I did about 10 to 13 years of knowing that I have this thing. I want to make a larger portion of my weekly time, if this is a pie chart, and slowly worked my way through leadership roles. And then at some point I was man, I kind of fell out of love with the tech part of my tech job. I love the people part. And if you know anything about tech leadership, it's you got to care about the business results a certain amount to keep your job and to get promoted. And I was man, I don't want to choose. I want the people results and the business results to be the same thing. And I get to do that as a career coach and focused on the tech industry.
That's amazing. What was it that gave you the final yes that it was time to make that switch to being self-employed and doing your own coaching full time?
Yeah. So I worked at some bigger name tech companies because I live in the Seattle area. It's not cheap to live here. So I kind of needed stock compensation in order to afford my mortgage and pay my bills and things like that. So I worked for Microsoft for about a decade. I worked for Zillow for about 4 years. And then I worked for Coinbase for 1 year. And I worked for other companies before that. But that's the last sort of, 14 or 15 years of my career. And when I started realizing that I was more drawn to having more mentees and being a mentor for more people and creating communities of practice for engineering leaders to learn how to be better people leaders, I let that curiosity slowly grow. It was not screw this, I'm going to quit my job and then I'm going to try and figure this out later. I have a family, I have a mortgage. I cannot afford to just decide that I can give up a really high paying tech job because I want to do this other thing, this golden handcuffs that we hear about. So I started taking on clients probably 6 months into my job at Coinbase, and I took them on the side and I started with people I knew, ex-colleagues of mine that were at other companies that sort of remember me being helpful. So I started with my inner circle, friends and family, getting the word out there. I was fortunate that some of those people referred me to other folks because, they loved the experience I had with it. So it started out, I probably had 6 clients while I was still a full-time employee. I felt like I needed to prove to myself that I could do this job and do it well, and that people wouldn't hate the services that I provided and that they would pay me for it. So I ran a lot of really small, tiny A/B experiments to kind of, will people pay me? Does the way I coach going to help people if I'm not their manager? Hundreds of small experiments. And then I basically started making more of my week coaching and less of my regular job. And I got to a point where I was at Coinbase and I was man, I really want to transition out of this job. And I kind of had a sense that a layoff was coming. And so I was going to actually volunteer for a layoff with my current company and say like, hey, I don't know if this is working out. If you have to lay people off, why don't you just give me severance and I'll just voluntarily separate. I had that meeting scheduled on a one-on-one with my boss on a Thursday, and 2 days prior to that, I got laid off without even having to volunteer. And I got 16 weeks of severance, which amounted to something like $40,000 or $60,000 in severance. I had been saving up money to be able to pay off a year of living expenses. Like I wanted a strong foundation, like sabbatical fund, if you will, for like, I'll give myself a year to see if I can pay bills. And if I can't, then I'll go back to being an employee. And I never had to touch that money. Maybe I dipped into it once or twice, but I've refilled it since then, and then some. So, I don't think there was a decision where it was suddenly, like these things abut each other. I would heavily recommend anyone considering going into coaching, prove to yourself a lot of these small things and resolve those while you still have a paycheck coming in, even if you have to do it on the side, because you can de-risk a transition like this that doesn't require you quit your job today and then start figuring it out tomorrow. In fact, that's an anti-pattern. I would not recommend it.
Well, that's a very wise approach to test the market, to build up your initial skill set, see what works, see what doesn't before diving full in head first. And also even just the financial aspect of it, to have a little bit of a buffer, to know how much time you've got to give it a try. And that's great to hear how it worked out so well for you that you didn't even have to dip into that a whole lot. Can you share with us, I know you had talked to me a little bit about this before the call, but can you share with us a little bit about your primary 3 offerings that you mentioned to me before?
Oh, sure. Knowing that I have this deep tech background, at this point, it's like 26 years of tech experience. I pretty much have been in tech my entire career since I got out of college. I've had multiple jobs in that time frame. So I haven't been an engineer the whole time. I've been a PM, an engineer, an analyst, a leader, game developer, game designer, like all these different data analysts, all these different types of jobs. And it gave me a pretty wide foundation that allowed me to be able to have conversations with a lot of different types of people in tech. So I'm versatile in that way. And in terms of when it comes to, considering the types of programs I would offer, I was thinking, where would my depth be most valuable? And what are the decisions or the problems that clients have that they would place the highest value on? And so I'm like, well, I've interviewed 300, 400 people in my tech career because I, ascended to senior levels of being what we call an IC. And then as a manager, I was expected to interview people all the time. I see forgettable applicants and I see memorable applicants. And I started to see patterns in the types of things that would make me more interested in remembering Nathan's name if I was interviewing him. I've been in these debriefs where I'm like, Nathan who? And I was like, I know I interviewed the guy, but I couldn't pick him out of a lineup, So there were things people were doing that was the same as other people, and then things that people were doing that were different. And I said, I wonder if I ran some experiments, I could kind of A/B test what would work well in the interview process. And we do these as individuals when we apply for jobs, but there's no best practices aggregated place of like what everyone's doing right now and what's working well. So I was like, someone's unemployed, like landing a job that pays $200,000, $300,000, or even $400,000 a year or more. That's a pretty valuable problem I could help solve. So the first thing is, what would people feel I'm credible at? Well, 26 years in tech, and at the time, 13 years and 15 years in coaching, a lot of credibility. So that background and running experiments, and the more people I helped, the more I could use that as social proof that, I can do this, repetitively, that I can get repeat success. And so I've helped maybe 100 people land tech jobs in the last 3 years. Got profiled in New York Times article about being excited about being laid off from Coinbase. That drove a lot of traffic. Been on a couple of tech specific podcasts where a lot of my clients have been. That's helped quite a bit. So, it's a combination of my expertise and seeing the value of that problem I'm helping clients solve. So, going from zero to $400,000 a year is a pretty valuable thing for clients. And a lot of times what I found is there's not a whole lot of things they have to do to get a much better result. And so if the ROI is high, and I can say like, hey, if you're going to make 400K a year, divide that by the number of days you work, like helping you land this job and spending 3 days of pay at the new job, doesn't that sound like a good return on your investment? So like thinking about it from the customer's, the client's perspective, is it massive value? Do I have some of the social proof? And then like, can I make a logical argument for it as well?
That's a very smart way to frame it and to give yourself a good price point. That's something that a lot of coaches I talk to struggle with, is determining how much to charge for their coaching. I think how you just broke it down, that's a fantastic way, especially for your type of coaching, to really break it down for someone, for them to see the value very easily. So
Yeah. I mean, for those that are familiar with like ethos, pathos, logos, ethos, this is like a 3-legged persuasive appeal used to influence clients or even anybody really. It's like ethos is about this appeal to credibility and ethics. Pathos is appealing to people's emotions. And then logos is about appealing to logic and reason. And so being able to hit all 3 of those is really important. So, if I'm talking about logos, it's like, hey, this is 3 days of pay at your new job. Think about how much you're losing by being unemployed. Like you're losing $400 a day, $1,000 a day, right? It's about 260 working days in a year, right? So if they make over 260, they're losing $1,000 a day. And in my experience, maybe it's because I'm a terrible salesperson, but I can only convince people to spend maybe like 3 to 5 days of their pay at their new job on working with me. And some of those tactics don't just help with the next job, they help with landing all future interviews as well. So it's like a renewable skill set that they can learn. But like I experimented to find that number. So like I don't necessarily charge everybody the exact same amount. Someone who lives in Alabama and they're trying to get a job for $70,000 a year as an engineer, they can't afford as much as someone living in the Bay Area that's going to get a job at Netflix and get paid like $600K a year. And so those problems are kind of worth different things to those people. But coming up with a consistent way of saying, I feel comfortable, asking for an investment that's like somewhere between 3 to 5 days of pay at the next job, because I feel like that's meets that logos, like the logical part of the argument.
that's fantastic. So that's one of the core components that you focus on. And do you mind breaking down the other 2 as well?
Oh yeah, sure. So when I was an athletics coach, I took stats on the kids that I coached in order not to see what they were bad at, but quite the opposite, to see what they were good at. And so when I became a leader in tech, I kind of looked around and said, how do we evaluate what people are good at? And like the very disappointing answer was nobody's really doing that as a leader. They're not being like, what is Nathan? Like Nathan reports to me, I'm your boss. Your boss isn't most of the time saying like, well, what is Nathan uniquely gifted at? And how can we take advantage of that in the job that he performs, like at our company? And I was really disappointed by that. I was like, this is what I did as an athletics coach. Why wouldn't it work in the workplace? And so understanding people's unique strengths is a part of all 3 of my offerings. So 1, understanding your strengths helps us tell stories that shine a light on the strengths for interviews. But knowing what your strengths are also helps us figure out, like if you don't like coding anymore and you maybe want to do leadership or do PM work, let's look at your strengths and see what kind of job in tech would allow you to leverage these strengths that you already have. Like it's more like puzzle piece fitting. Like Nathan's shaped like this. And now like what are the Nathan shaped jobs out there, right? Is it more like a manager, or is it more like what we would call an IC, like an individual contributor? Is it more like a PM role, or is it more like engineering? And sometimes the role someone's in and the strengths they have aren't a really good match. And if the things you're good at are not the things you get to do, it's really hard to be engaged in that work. Like we want there to be heavy overlap there. So when it comes to career pivots or helping someone with a promotion, a lot of times it's like, hey, what are you good at that's unique and different? And we can use that as a foundation to guide either landing a job, getting promoted, or considering sort of an adjacent career pivot into a related field.
Fantastic. What would you say has been one of your proudest moments in running your company so far?
I mean, there's financial components to this work, right? I like that when things are going well, and, career coaching is highly volatile from month to month because there's some seasonality to the revenue we expect. I mean, I don't know many coaches that make a ton of money in the summer because everybody's on vacation with their family and they don't want to talk about career. So it's usually Q4 and Q1 where I see higher revenue. I just surpassed like 400K, like in revenue, total revenue, like pretty recently in the last 3 years. So that's pretty good for being a part-time job. Like I don't work 8 hours a day. I work 3 to 4 hours a day. And, so there's a financial component. That's not the most proud thing, but like the thing I'm most proud of. I think the thing I'm most proud of is just hearing some of the quotes from the people that I've helped. Like I helped one guy who got a job, signed up, signed his offer letter. And the weekend after he landed his job, his wife realized they needed like heart surgery. And like, had he not had that job and he's in the United States, they probably would have been in medical bankruptcy. They would have had to gone in for this ER visit and get a heart surgery. And the fact that he had benefits because he landed a job more quickly, like could have made the difference between either bankruptcy or life and death for his wife, and those kinds of things. I just can't imagine doing a job that's more deeply fulfilling than like that, than having that kind of impact on people's lives. Right. I had another client that, was in the middle of getting promoted at Google and then got laid off because this thing's happen in big tech. Like they don't pay attention to like who they should really keep. And she was like, someone wants me to come back. Should I go back to the place that laid me off? And we kind of laid out a very clear set of criteria that she wanted. She had the upper hand. They wanted to bring her back and she got to be on some very fulfilling project. And now she's done so well that they might even create a new product based on her ideas. Like she can't tell me the details because it's under NDA, but giving her the autonomy to be able to create her own path to success at a big company. She's really grateful for that kind of stuff. And so I think it's those personal stories that make it most fulfilling for me.
That's amazing. And having helped over 100 individuals already, I'm sure you have plenty of those that you could share. And
Yeah.
congrats on the revenue goals, by the way. That's amazing as well.
Yeah.
I know it's a big part of what you do, especially a big part of the journey as a solo entrepreneur, not knowing what tomorrow is going to look like. So congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's not anywhere near as predictable month to month, as like when you get the paycheck, even if you're on vacation, there are some realities to having to find ways to sustainably find leads. I think I started off with friends and family, having a technical background. I started analyzing and identifying where people are willing to ask for help. And it can differ for every coach, but for me, Nathan doesn't want to go on LinkedIn where everybody knows his last name, where he says, I feel like I suck and I can't land a job, because your boss could find that in the future, right? I found that people were most vulnerable and most open in like anonymous platforms. So like Blind and Reddit are the two channels where I tend to find more people who are willing to say like, man, I know I'm good, but it's really hard to get a call back when I apply for a job. Can someone help me? I go to the places where they feel comfortable opening up and saying like, well, hey, I don't guarantee you will get a job, but if you want to talk about this, like, here's my link and we can have a discovery call and talk about what a plan would look like. And then they can go see 50 LinkedIn recommendations that I have on LinkedIn, or they can go look at podcasts or publications that I've been on. And that can help them feel like they have a path forward and someone to support them through this inflection point in their career.
That's amazing. On the flip side, what would you say is one of the hardest parts about running your business right now?
Right now, I have a lot of clients. And so, and the way I run my programs is kind of like, I'm a piano teacher. Like I teach you some tactics, you go practice. And then when you get a little further in the interview process, we have another session. So like a traditional offering for me maybe has 3 or 4 hours of coaching, but they're not scheduled like in advance. Like if Nathan gets a lot of interviews and he has one coming up next week, we need to have that storytelling session close to when you're going to use it. So it's like this just in time interview training kind of thing. But if people struggle to land, it may be months before we have that next session. And so because I run it that way, I might have, have like 50 or 60 clients right now, but they're all at different stages. And so the context switching of like being able to remember where I'm at with that many people, it's a little tricky. I have had to institute some systems and some high level process. Like I have a Trello board that has a card for each of my clients and some notes about where we're at. And then I try to ping these people every few weeks so they don't forget that I'm a resource. I don't want these people struggling by themselves. But when it's been 4 weeks since we met, they don't always it's not always top of mind for them to ping me when things aren't going as well as they hoped. So biggest problem right now, I mean, it's a problem I know a lot of other people wish they had, like, oh, too many clients. Like, I know I get it. It sounds like I'm like patting myself on the back, but that, and then just consistent leads, right? Paying for leads is something I've tried before. But the market's a little fickle too. And so, you can't get the same number of clients in July that you get in January. And so, success for me, PR, right? Like being on podcasts or being in news articles. Like, I have a business insider feature that's supposed to be coming out in the next couple of weeks. That will drive traffic. Being on the right podcasts. I always look for those opportunities to basically get like free advertising. I find that works. It's a little more sustainable for me at this point in my career. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. When you say that you tried purchasing leads in the past, what did you try along those lines that didn't work so well?
Yeah. So at first I paid like a growth marketing person to sort of help me out. Like I think I invested like $4,000 into that. It's kind of led to believe that it was kind of like done for you. And then later on kind of found out it wasn't done for you. There was a lot of work to do on my side. Unless I was willing to violate some terms of service for LinkedIn. And I'm just like I can't lose my LinkedIn access. Like it's one of the three main places I get leads from is LinkedIn, Blind, and Reddit. Like those are the three kind of sustainable places. And so some of these folks were kind of like, well, you only have to pay $500 a month. And I'm like, that's a lot of money for me at my stage. Like I don't have a spare $6,000 sitting around to pay for this. And so I boosted a couple LinkedIn posts to see if it would help. Jury's kind of out on that. I got 2 leads from the post, but I've done those kinds of posts before and gotten leads. So I don't know if the boosting actually made a difference. I've tried the LinkedIn services section. So there's a services section on LinkedIn where you can say, hey, recommend me for interview prep and career development coaching. But I'm unable to filter that by industry. Like LinkedIn solution is not industry specific. So I'll get like some college grad who's a nurse that's like, I want help with my interview. I'm like, I can't help. Like, no. So there's a lot of that. I would say the things that have helped quoted, like QWOTED.com. It's like help a reporter out, being on free plans for that and just being able to offer advice to reporters looking for subject matter experts. That's been really successful. That's where the New York Times thing came from. And I've been on today.com and dice.com and a few other websites related to being an expert. Somebody struggling with their interview sees me being quoted in an article, a little more likely they'll reach out for a discovery call.
I really like the topic of the New York Times article of how you were happy that Coinbase laid you off. That's a pretty clever one that would definitely pull me in.
Yeah. I think my LinkedIn post that day, since I was 2 days from volunteering, I was probably the only one that had a smile on their face when HR jumped on the call for 5 minutes with my director. And they're like, and I was like, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. And they're like, what? They had like confused dog beam look on their face when they're like, you're happy you got laid off? And I didn't rail on the company or anything like that, but I knew it was not a good fit for me culture wise. And, so I was very grateful. Like I saved up this money and then they just gave me more money. Like they funded my startup. They funded my coaching startup. Right. And it's like, I could not be happier. Go into the summer, spend a lot of time outdoors, finish my deck, go on this bucket list hike and get my coaching, business off the ground. I was very happy. And I thought, how many people actually talk about how they're happy to get laid off? And I was like, probably not that many. Writing that LinkedIn post, that's what the New York Times reporter found. And so just posting about that, I'm over the moon excited about what this layoff represents for me is like freedom to choose the next chapter in my own career. I think that contrarian view is what caught the eye of that New York Times reporter, and led to, I mean, gosh, probably 30 to 40K in revenue from that one article. Right. So.
Wow, that's fantastic. All from
Yeah.
one LinkedIn post. You never know what it's going to bring.
Never know. Right. So, yeah.
Well, thinking forward a little bit, where would you like your business to be in the next 1 to 2 years?
Yeah. So I have a weekly email that I send out to a group of people that I call my advisory board. And it's people that are close friends of mine or have been in a startup accelerator with me, colleagues, and each one of them has like a different set of expertise. And so they can sort of support me when they want to. The goal this year was to get to 250K of revenue. I got nowhere close to that. When I was modeling out this year, I made it incremental from last year, but I had these 2 huge podcast appearances last year that kind of artificially inflated my salary. So, I will probably try for a more reasonable, revenue amount. I'll probably end up around 180 or 190 this year. So I'm thinking next year I might aim for 200, incrementally larger. I also launched a group coaching program earlier this year for people who couldn't afford to work with me one-on-one. There's like some people in England or in other countries, they don't get paid as much as engineers in the United States. And so the math doesn't work. You know, that ROI we talked about, 3 days, like I couldn't afford to charge them 3 days when they make $40,000 a year in England. And the time zone is a little tricky. And so I wanted more of a DIY, like watch these videos, join these group sessions, and maybe I can make it more affordable. So I'd like to get to, I think I'm at 45 or 50 group coaching clients to date. I've had 4 coaching cohorts. I'd like to see us get up to like 100, get that 40 up to 100 next year, and have a larger percentage of revenue come from group coaching, because it's more sustainable. It is not quite a linear time commitment like one-on-one coaching is. And so while I like working with people one-on-one, I want to reach more people, and I don't want to work like 50 hours a week. So I have to find like a more sustainable sort of way to help more people without it taking, like, I don't want to double my clients and double my time. That's kind of a non-goal. If I was going to do that, I should just go back to tech and make a lot more money than I'm making right now.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you think you need to have in place to make that a reality in the next year or two?
Group coaching is just kind of a different animal than one-on-one coaching. Like I started running experiments with one-on-one clients. And so I have a lot more depth there on how to attract those kinds of leads and what those people are looking for, because that's made up 98% of my success stories are one-on-one, because I didn't start group coaching until this year. And the commitment level is just a little different. Honestly, like I don't know if you know, but like an online course, which is kind of like what my thing is along with group coaching, the completion rate is abysmal. It's like 5%. It's ridiculously low. And so if someone's not going to complete the work, it's unlikely they're going to get results. And so like, what do you do when the monetary commitment is so low that people don't commit their time to it? So this has been something I've had to learn. I've offered my services for free to some people who I felt really bad about, and most of them did not get results because they don't have any skin in the game. And so when it comes to pricing methodology, my feedback is pay close attention to where you start to see a drop off in the commitment of your clients, because you can charge so little that they won't put in the time. You know, I call it like being a personal trainer. Like I can't guarantee results any more than I can guarantee Nathan's going to lose 10 pounds if he works with me, if he doesn't put in the work, right? If it's free coaching, he probably won't see results. Quite frankly, he has to be willing to put in a minimum amount of spend for the behavior change to stick. Cause he's like, I don't want to waste the money I already gave Brian. Like, why would I do that? Right. Knowing there is a minimum threshold that you have to charge people. And that's why I sort of pivoted to like certain number of days on the job. I don't want to charge $500, even if I can afford to, because it'll probably reduce the likelihood Nathan gets results with me because he just won't take it seriously. I mean, no offense, Nathan. I'm sure you're a great person, but like the hypothetical Nathan just wouldn't take it seriously. And we have to avoid that. That's a perception that we don't deliver results, even though we're not really the root cause of that problem, right? So,
Right. Yeah, that's a very hard one. And that's one that you wouldn't think works that way, but oftentimes you find that it does. That's something I've been hearing a lot lately. But it just shows that when people find value in something, they're more willing to take it seriously than others.
yeah.
Um,
And if you really care about them getting results, there's a minimum you can't go below, even if they want you to, right? Because they won't get results. And then they're not going to get results with you. Like we got to think about those kind of things. Sometimes it's better to say no to those people. I mean, that's a point in coach's career. Not everybody's at the point where they can say no to working with somebody. I understand that, but you don't want 25 people out there saying it was a waste of money to work with Brian. That's not going to help, right? With regards to social proof either.
yeah, very well said. In your business, how do you see artificial intelligence and automation playing a role in your growth over the next few years?
Yeah, so I deal with a lot of people that are using AI and are also terrified of AI taking their jobs because I work in tech. I use AI as well. I am really, really good at responding to a problem that a client has. I am terrible, Nathan, at creating content from scratch when I'm staring at a blank screen like in LinkedIn. And so what I often do is ask AI to prompt me with things that I can respond to, because I almost have this, it almost feels selfish to write a post that's not helping another human being. Now we know that if I write a post and it's helpful, a lot of strangers that will probably never tell me will find it useful, right? Like that will happen. And so, I use a specific AI tool that's been trained on like the top performing LinkedIn content. It's called Stanley. It's run by the people who have Stan Store. And it's been really helpful in finding my vibe. Like my vibe on LinkedIn is like equal parts Ted Lasso and Fozzie Bear is like how I describe myself, right? And so I'm goofy and wacky and I like to have fun, but I'm also like deeply care about helping people like with their career, like as a coach. And I really love that combination. Stanley's been really helpful in me, helping me draft posts about topics that I care about. And then I usually replace 2/3 the content that it actually writes, but it gives me a starting place. And so for like a gap like me of how do I get from 0 to 0.3, I need help with that. I love getting it from 0.3, like all the way to 1.0, like 100% complete. So AI has been helpful for me. I also instruct my clients to use it for some portions of their resume. We usually have like a summary section at the top. I usually recommend people have 3 or 4 bullet points, not a paragraph, because recruiters don't want to read a paragraph. But those 3 bullet points are something we can quickly customize. We could ask ChatGPT, here's my resume, right? Here's my LinkedIn profile, and here's the job description. How should I rewrite the top 3 summary bullet points of my resume to more closely align with the job description, but don't do it in a way that it takes 2 days to refine my resume and suddenly like I'm applicant number 1204 and I never get looked at. So like jumping on opportunities when we see it's important. But like I've suggested that my clients use AI tooling in a situation like that. Just quick 60-second refinements of the top line stuff that you might see in order to help catch a keyword filter in Workday or in Greenhouse, and to make you seem a little more appealing for the job. Nothing lying, right? Just help me quickly customize it, but do it in a way where I still get ROI and I don't lose my place in the.
Yeah, that's great. What would you say is one of the biggest misconceptions that you see or mistakes that you see with people trying to get jobs in the tech industry?
Mistakes. Well, there's a few that come to mind. I would say the biggest one by far is treating the interview like a test. I think there is this sense that if I say the right things in the job interview. If I score high enough on the SAT, then I will get into the company. Like it's like some entrance exam for college. And the reality is it's like you can get rejected for reasons that have nothing to do with your interview performance whatsoever. It is a hot mess of garbage, like behind the scenes. Like it's ridiculous. And so there are I'll give you a quick example. So Nathan interviews for a job on Monday. Okay. And Nathan's, they do a debrief about Nathan's results on Tuesday. I interview for the exact same job on Tuesday. Okay. I interview on Tuesday and then 2 hours later, I get a rejection. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so terrible that they rejected me after just 2 hours. Like, I didn't think I did. Like, I start thinking, like, I start filling in the blanks to try and understand why did I do so bad? When the reality is you got the offer on Tuesday and you were excited. And so you accepted the offer. And so they just rejected everybody else because there's only one job opening. Right. And so a lack of outcomes can start to impact your identity, a lack of desired outcomes. And what I do with people is try to reverse that flow. I want you to take your identity and use it to drive the outcomes you want. But so many people are kind of like, what did I do wrong in the interview? And the answer is it may not even have anything to, they didn't even meet to talk about my interview results because they would do that the day after. And if you don't know that, I might go change everything about the way that I like the stories I tell and like the summary of myself that I have ready. I could go change a whole bunch of stuff based on a signal that's completely false. It didn't even have anything to do with how I did. And so I think you have to embrace this chaotic blanket of suck that is the job interview process itself and just say, you got to make sure you don't connect dots that aren't worthy of connecting. It's like playing a hand of blackjack, right? You know, another hand is coming. You don't have to win every hand, but you need to find people that have a lot of reps with helping other people be successful and then start with the tactics that have already helped other people be successful. Like that's what coaching platforms do, right? Like our job is what have we experimented with? What is working well? And we don't guarantee these things are going to work, but start on third base, right? Don't start at home plate. Like let us help you avoid the pitfalls that a lot of other coaches have fallen into. If we collect our knowledge and we do that together, you know, the finish line is closer. Like who doesn't want the finish line closer?
Absolutely. Very well said. If you had to give one tip to someone out there who's just starting out in their coaching business that would have helped you or that you wish you knew at the beginning, what would that be?
Like be curious. You know, I think sometimes as a founder, we can get really stubborn about things or, you know, hey, this is my offering. Get curious. Like my curiosity came through because I'm a PM by trade for a decade of like, I wonder if there's patterns in the interview process that would more reliably help people land jobs, like turn more no's into yeses. I didn't have proof that existed, but I did see patterns when I interviewed other people of the things that impressed me. And I was like, well, come on, if they impress me, maybe Nathan cares about different things than I do when you're interviewing other people, but there's probably a pattern to the things that would impress you. And so what if I just started collecting data and I was like, I wonder if we could come up with a set of things that make it more likely that you get a call back from a recruiter. And if you say the right things to a recruiter, more likely you get an interview. And if you say the right things in an interview about your background, it'll make it slightly more likely you would get an offer. And so just be curious and like lean into that. Like, I wonder if, like, where are the places where my ideal clients like to congregate? I wonder where that is, right? For me, that's blind, even though it's kind of like a cesspool because everybody's anonymous and so everyone can be trolls if they want to. A lot of tech people are on Blind. There was no career coaching channel on Blind yet. And then I, as an MVP, got the opportunity to create my own channel. I created the career coaching channel. It has 185,000 followers on it or something like now. And I'm the moderator for it, like the only one. And so like look for places online where your ideal clients congregate and complain about the problems that you help solve. Well, I wonder where those are. Like, is that LinkedIn? Nah, not really. It's an identity thing. Nathan doesn't want to raise his hand and say, I suck at interviews. But anonymous places like Blind and Reddit became those places for me. So for each client, for each coach that's out there, what problems do I solve? Where do they complain about it? And where do these people congregate? Because if it is a place where I can offer help or offer expertise, I can build a reputation as someone who is helpful and not trolling, right? And be known as somebody that's like, I see a pattern of wherever this person is, like my name on Blind is Refactor Brian, but like where Refactor Brian helps me over and over again. Coach Brian. And so then they're like, well, I've seen Coach Brian in here many times and there's a pattern of him being helpful. Maybe he could help me. So be curious and try things like, what is the Adam Savage from Mythbusters say? It's like the only difference between science and farting around is writing things down. It's like, just write things down, like try things and see what works. And then you will learn as you go if you learn into curiosity and you just try some things.
That's great. I like that. That's a very creative approach for hunting down your ideal market and even just providing a little bit of value out there, so people know that they can trust you even before they get involved. So that's a fantastic tip. I appreciate you sharing that and appreciate you for joining us today. I'll end with this. What is the best place for our viewers to find more information about you, your coaching programs, any way to get involved?
Yeah, sure. So I have a really terrible, crappy landing page, but if you want to go see how crappy it is, like you can go to refactorcoaching.com. The best way to probably learn more about me is to go on LinkedIn. So my alias is like Whack Brian K. Pulliam. You can Google me and you can go look in iTunes or Spotify for Brian Pulliam. I have an unfortunate name collision. There is another Brian Pulliam in Albuquerque, New Mexico, who's in jail for murdering 2 people. That is not me. That is another Brian Pulliam. Nathan can confirm, I don't have a neck tattoo. I promise there's no jail cell behind me that wouldn't give me access to Riverside if I was in jail. But, go do your own research. We expect clients to go do research on us before they make a decision to make sure it's a good fit for them. And so I try to create beyond podcasts and be in articles where I think I can help people. So people who are interested in my coaching can do the same.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that. And I'm glad you clarified that you're not the murderer. That might turn some people off from your coaching program.
Yeah, spouses are really good at finding that. I got some person on the call and they're really excited. And then their spouse says, I know this guy, I just met him. And then of course the spouse is like, what's his name? And then they do a Google search. And so now I have to preemptively tell them hey, this might happen. And I have short hair and I'm white, and so, I bear 60% resemblance. And so it's really important that I clarify that in advance. Otherwise I'd never get a response to my follow-ups. So,
well, that's a good way a good conversation starter.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Well, thank you very much, Brian. I appreciate you joining us today. And you shared a lot of value that I think our viewers will get a lot out of. So thank you very much.
Yeah, glad to be on.
Absolutely. And thank you, viewers. If you found this valuable, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you here next time on another episode of Grow For It. Thank you.